30th of December, and it's getting near to New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, and it's my last day in Calcutta. This is the house where I lived for nearly 20 years of my life. The top floor flat in the corner there was where my mother and four sisters and myself lived for many, many years. And it was in '63 that I left Calcutta, went to Hong Kong and thence to the UK. So this is a very nostalgic trip. I visited my old house. So moving on, this is Calcutta. And Calcutta, of course, is such a busy, iconic place. Has a lot of associations with the British Raj, because this is where the Brits founded the East India Company and made the British Empire, and India was a large part of it. This is the church where I used to go as a young boy. I attended the Sunday school here. So all these old landmarks brought back some very interesting and, I dare say, happy memories. For the most part, they're very happy. Everything has changed. Nothing ever stays the same. More scenes of Calcutta. This is a very common sight. Fruit sellers on the road. Another old church. Calcutta, the old part of Calcutta is full of these old colonial churches. There were so many denominations: Methodist, Presbyterian, Anglican, Catholic, and so on. And of course, I'm now flying on to Delhi, which is the capital of India. So I'm not going to show you the entire video. I'm just going to comment on clips of various bits of video that I made. This is a very large ficus that I made for the host I'm staying with, and she and her late husband has this huge garden. They are, of course, extremely well-to-do because they are large industrialists in India, and they have a large 5-acre farm, what they call a farm, and they love their plants. So this large ficus I made in 1997 from the hedging ficuses that were grown to protect the boundary. And this was just dug out from the hedge, and I still remember making it to this very day. Of course, it's 1997. Oh, it's a long time. I don't think it's thickened that much. It's just become more dense. Of course, it keeps changing. I need to keep pruning it. I haven't been here for 7 years. Every time I come, I work on these trees. So here I am working on these trees, trying to improve it further. My host is now getting on in age. She's 91 or 92, but she still loves her plants. And of course, they have about 8 or 9 gardeners, several servants, and this is a beautiful house, beautiful garden. I will show you some more of the plants. Me working on the trees. This is the other side of the tree. Ficuses are so easy to train for bonsai because they grow very fast in the tropics. I made 2 of these large trees. Ficuses galore. This is an old ficus. I don't know what variety this is. Oh, this is a vitex. Again, made from ordinary garden shrubs and plants, because in India there's no tradition of importing bonsai from other Asian countries. Another large jade is a huge jade. Jade trees grow prolifically in India, and even in the north where it's very cold, they still grow quite well. In Delhi, the temperature does go to about 1 degree centigrade or 3 degrees centigrade, but that's only for a couple of hours in the early morning or at night, so they don't suffer that much. This is a Muraya. Muraya has got very hard wood. This is a multi-trunk tree. Again, this is something I made many, many years ago. So let me show you some more projects that I did. This is one of the very long needle tropical pines. I think is Pinus roxburghii. Very difficult to use for bonsai because the needles are so long, and the trunks tend to grow absolutely straight, bolt upright. So here I am teaching Ajit, or helping Ajit, to make this into a more interesting shape. Ajit is the next generation of bonsai enthusiasts. His mother is the owner of this lovely property, but he, although being a busy executive, is genuinely interested in bonsai. So I'm showing him how to wire this almost impossible tree, which is ever so straight and without a great deal of character. So let's see what we can make out and do with this tree. So as I say, I'm just videoing snippets. So we are using very thick wire to wire it. So we're going to put a double coil of, I think this is 4 mil anodized aluminum wire, and we'll see if we can bend this tree. I'm speeding it up if you don't mind. So one coil is not enough, so we're putting a double coil. So moving on, we've put the double coil on and we've managed to get quite a nice bend out of that very thick, impossible trunk. So we will now see what we can do with the branches. As I always say, nothing is impossible. You can always make a bonsai out of anything. Some are more promising or have more potential than others, but to say that a plant has got no potential is not true. So we've wired the trunk and we've introduced some movement into the tree. And we've wired the branches as well. So what was first a very straight trunk has now ended up with some movement in the trunk. So with time, we will develop a few more pads. It is possible, and we will see what happens to this tree in the future. So this is yet another tree, another great big roxburghii. The trunk must be at least 2 to 3 inches in diameter, but this would be impossible to bend, but we can do something with the branches. So let's try and make something out of this very difficult tree. The only thing we can hope to do is to give some interest to the branches. The very thick branches, you notice, I've already cut off and made into short gins. And I'm now showing Ajit how to wire the tree and make it an interesting tree with high branches, not low branches, but high branches. Pity the trunk is so straight. If it had more character, then it would be more interesting, but this is the nature of pines of this species. Look at the long branches without any bud back. But I've seen people do make some interesting trees with it. As I've always said, nothing is impossible. So let's see what happens when we add a little bit of wire to it. So I'm speeding it up, so we're wiring all the branches, literally all the branches. So you can see the effect, and it's not a waste of time. It's looking promising already, looking very promising. Speed it up a little more. When I look at pines like this, it makes you appreciate much, much more what we have in temperate climates, where the Scots pines, the five-needle pines, and even the black pine are much easier pines to use for bonsai than the Roxburghii, also called longifolia, Pinus longifolia. So there you go. This is what we were able to create. So it's not a disaster. So an almost impossible pine, we were able to make something out of it. So let me continue by showing you some more videos. There are clips of videos that were made, but I won't show you the entire videos because some of these run into 15 and 20 minutes long and you would be frankly very bored. So this is the sort of material people brought to me. Everyone seems to think that I can work wonders and create things out of nothing. I know I can work to a certain extent making bonsai out of almost impossible material, but some of these are well nigh impossible. Look at this. This is some sort of tree juniper. Not like the Chinese junipers that we are accustomed to. It grows bolt upright, but it is a juniper. Look at it. It's just a mass of branches. And this was about 5 foot tall. I cut it down to about 4 foot, but it's still too tall. And the branches are much too thick, so I'm going to get rid of most of the thick branches. So I was explaining to them what I would do to it. This struck me as being a very interesting tree. And I will show you in a minute why it is interesting. Like all these trees, they are quite a puzzle, and it's interesting to see what turns out. So we will see. So let's continue and show you what I continue to do. So all these long thick branches are going to be cut out. You can't really do much with them. To say that this is a challenging tree is an understatement because it's more than challenging. What will end up is just the trunk, and we hope that it will bud back and produce new branches. So all these long branches are going to be literally cut right back, made into gins, and we hope that these young branches will take over the tree and they will provide branches which are more in keeping and proportional to the thickness of the trunk. It's amazing how many people do not realize that when you try to make bonsai, it is always the thinner branches that are useful rather than the thick branches. Thick branches are virtually useless for bonsai work, except for gins. So you see these thin branches which are left, they will develop and become branches for this bonsai eventually. These thin branches here. So that is what I'm leaving behind. This tree has got a beautiful spiral bark. You can see how the bark spirals around the tree. So that makes it very, very interesting. So the audience were quite fascinated. They're really wondering what I would do. So let's see what the ultimate outcome is. It's a long process. This is a tree that took quite a lot of time to do. You see that beautiful trunk? That is the beauty. The beauty is there. So let me continue. It took me a long while just to get the branches off, make small gins. As you can see here, I'm trying to make some short gins. And because we're not really repotting this tree at all, we're going to recommend that the tree is kept in its large container so it'll continue to grow. So I can assure you that it'll produce a lot of these new young growth from the old wood very easily. And then I used a Makita die grinder to start doing some carving. So let's continue with this video. I'm just showing you a close-up of this trunk. The way the bark spirals, I was going to do a spiral gin. So I'm using a Makita die grinder with a very benign bit to carve a spiral shari around the trunk. So this is what I'm about to do. If you study the tree closely, I had half a mind of keeping the tree no more than 15-18 inches tall instead of 4 feet, and this base would make a beautiful bonsai. So let me just show you a little bit of the carving that I was trying to do. As you can appreciate, I'm doing a video of a video, hence I'm not showing the sound. So that's the false spiral shari that I'm producing. I did go further up the tree, but as I said, I could have easily cut the tree much further down and leave it a nice short tree. But as it's not my tree, the owner would have had a real heart attack if I suggested that. Because 30 or 40 people wanted me to demonstrate on lots of material, I usually just show the structure and the design and the way ahead and leave them to sort the detail out. Power tools are not much used in India because not many people carve and not many people know how to carve well. So carving is always a novelty. I'm explaining how new branches will form and create pads. So I thought I'd give you a flavor of what I was doing. So I'm going to just show you a bit of the carving. Can be thinned a little more, but this basically is the future direction of this tree. Alright, like that. This is the front. So I'm using the natural twist of the trunk. Yeah. So you see how the bark goes. Alright. Lovely. Okay. So let me continue by showing you some more examples of trees that I worked on. This was someone's attempt at trying to make a bonsai, but as you can see, it's just a bush planted in a bonsai pot with some rocks, and this doesn't really do anything. So let's see what I did with it. Even I was surprised. So what I did was to separate that bush and introduce some branches and trunks which became visible. So this could eventually end up as a raft. So that was the future direction that I suggested for this tree. Now, some more junipers I didn't show the before and after on that one. Some big ficuses that came for grooming and trimming. I just made it into more of a triangular shape. It was just a great big ball shape. Now this was a very interesting juniper. This was a very, very tall juniper. In fact, this tree is only 2/3 of the original tree. Pity I don't have a before shot of this tree, but I can assure you that it didn't look like this to begin with. It was just a great big bush. So this is almost the complete article. Let me just run through some of the pictures to show you. Obviously the owner's delighted. This branch on my right hand was another 3 foot long, so I cut that off and made it into a gin. And that gin I also bent it down by applying a blow lamp to it and made it a bit curly. Sorry to show you these stills, but that's the best way of showing you the progression of these trees. So that gin can be bent. So that was the final outcome, as you can see. And that's the future direction of the tree. So I hope that gives you a flavor of what I did. I thought I'd show you a couple more examples. This is a great big Roxburghii pine. It was just upright, but I tried to do some heavy wiring to make it like a semi-cascade for the future. So the top portion, you can see I've already made it into a nest shape, so that's going to be the top, and this bottom portion is going to be a cascading part. So what originally was an upright bush has now the makings of a semi-cascade. So this was the end of the demonstration in Delhi on the 4th of January. And the lady sitting in the chair in the front is Mrs. Sridhar, who's 92 years old, I think. And it is her premises. And it is through her goodness that the Indian Bonsai Association in Delhi are able to use her lovely garden for hosting this demonstration. And as you can see, again, all these lovely ladies are members of the Indian Bonsai Association. And these are the gardeners and staff of the garden, which I always like to show you. And finally, let me end by showing you a garden I made back in, I think this was 2005 that I made this garden. 17 or 18 years ago. Can you imagine? This is the garden I also helped to design in 2005. Look at it. I designed this waterfall and I made a model so that it could be tested and worked. So there we are. This Zen garden, I would add, was also made in 2005, and it has remained completely unchanged and unaltered in all these 17 or 18 years. It is lit up at night. I'm afraid I didn't manage to get a night view of this garden, but it is lit up at night, and apparently they pride themselves in this being the only Zen garden in the whole of Delhi. So there you go. So ends my Delhi trip, and I will move on to Bombay next. I managed to dig up some old pictures from the past, and I'm going to show you the contrast between what I did recently in Delhi. This is a picture of me working on a tree back in 2007, I think this was the visit. And this is me in 2023. Now this picture was taken in 2005, on 2005 visit, when I started making that ficus. It had just been taken out of the hedge and we put it in a concrete pot. 2005, that's 18 years ago. And let me show you what the tree looks like today. This is the same tree today. You see the twin trunk, how it has developed in the 18 years. Another contrast, this picture was taken 2007 on my visit, and I will show you this is the same table with Ajit, who is the son of my host. Same table, different bonsai tree. And yet another contrast, I was telling you about the model. I made this model with some small rocks to illustrate how the waterfall should be made. And using this model, I got the workmen to construct the proper waterfall, which is this. So there you go. I hope you've enjoyed this.
When the she asks me, do you look alright? And I says, you look wonderful tonight. When then I told her, as I turned out the light, I said, my darling, you look